fallacies of the faith.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Theistic Pearls of Wisdom, the series where I choose posts and comments made by theists in Facebook discussion groups and respond to them from an atheistic, naturalistic, and obviously my own personal perspective. Before we get to the pearl of today, I have to explain two things. First, the post in question was made in a German-speaking group, so the text you read is the Facebook translation of what was written in German. And further, I have taken only the beginning of the post because the rest was too long and rambling. I only wanted to address the part about the sign of God. Now let me read the post to you and buckle in because even the part that I chose is a little long. Dear friends, I want to tell you about a spiritual experience that I just had and seems very important to me. I also often get doubts whether I'm on the right path, whether I'm not too self-sufficient and too inconsistent with regard to my focus on Jesus. So I listened to a TV service on Sunday, the day of Epiphany, the conclusion of the Christmas holidays, and I wondered what happened to the souls referred to as chaff in the Bible, separated from the wheat in the court. If God doesn't just extinguish these souls, like maybe you extinguish a burning candle. At that moment, a bronze crucifix that I have lying on a tray for prayer crashed on the ground, which actually can't be because the weight distribution hardly allows it. I was very frightened at the moment because I know such signs of God and such synchronicity has not appeared to me for the first time. Before we get to the incident described, let us look at the first sentence after the introduction. I repeat it. I also often get doubts whether I'm on the right path, whether I'm not too self-sufficient, too inconsistent with regard to my focus on Jesus. The poster admits to doubt, but instead of following this doubt, looking deeper into why they believe, they are desperately trying to actually dive deeper into their faith, focusing on Jesus, whatever that means, but flagellating themselves for not actually focusing enough and giving up more of their self-sufficiency and independence. If that does not demonstrate how religion makes its followers into slaves, I do not know. They are only looking to reaffirm their faith, not looking for confirmation or evidence. Back to what I actually wanted to address. The poster was, at the point in question, which happened to be the day of Epiphany, it is the 6th of January, the Facebook translation is a misinterpretation of the German name for that day, contemplating what happens to non-saved souls. The souls are separated like the wheat from the chaff, thinking that one possibility is that God just extinguishes them. All that while watching a Sunday service on TV. According to the poster, at that point, the heavy bronze cross they keep in some special place for when they are praying fell to the floor. The poster deemed that, basically, physically impossible. I wonder how they determined that, but they interpreted it as a sign from God. How often had this poster seen objects fall, without explanation, but simply ignored it because the circumstances were just more mundane? But because of them watching a service on TV and wielding deep thoughts in their mind, and because it was a crucifix, surely this fell because of a special sign from God. A sign for what? What does it mean? The poster first jumps to other times where they are convinced God gave them a sign and then tells us that now I know what to do, as if before they had presented a problem that needed some kind of resolution or required action, but they didn't. I know this is not in the part that I read, but that was later in the post. Where to start with this? Can I say with any certainty that the crucifix was not moved by God as a sign for the poster? No, I obviously can't. But the explanation that the crucifix was lying unbeknownst to the poster in a precarious position since the last time it was put down, and now a slight imbalance was somehow exacerbated through a little movement of the table because maybe the poster hit it without even noticing, that is simply a much more likely explanation. God is not even a candidate explanation here from my perspective. And I wonder, is this person serious? This God throws things around and for the rest relies on the person seeing that sign to interpret what it means? That is the limit of this God's capability? Should we not expect a little more if God already bothers to give signs to someone who seemingly considers themselves worthy of receiving signs from God? And why would God use something that some other Christian, under only slightly different circumstances, could and would interpret as something demonic? A falling cross! That must have been the devil! Even the poster says that they were startled and scared in the first moments after the crucifix fell, which would be a normal reaction. But in that very moment, they already started to construct in their head what now has become their reality. Let us spin this a little further. This God clearly is able to interact with the physical world, but is limited to move objects around that otherwise would remain stationary. But this God is everywhere, and it does nothing when it observes a child being abused or murdered? In such a situation, it cannot make objects fly through the air and hit the perpetrator where it hurts most? I could now say God has to respect the free will of the perp to rape a child, but that would be cynical, would it not? But it is strange, right? And why is this God so unclear in its message? Does the Bible not say that God is not the author of confusion in 1 Corinthians 14:33? What about the mindset this poster is in? If I would observe something fall that by all accounts and to my knowledge should not have moved at all, I would be investigating how it happened that this item fell. Did I maybe not put it in its place as securely as I thought? Was it maybe moved before by someone else and I just don't know about it? Did I inadvertently hit the table the item was lying on? Or if it was lying on a shelf on a wall connected to another flat, might the neighbors have hit the wall with something that made the shelf vibrate and caused the crucifix to fall? I most definitely would not jump to conclusions about God giving signs and some other supernatural force moving this object just because something fell. Things fall. Gravity always wins. If the crucifix now would have floated in midair, then the whole situation would look different and we would have something to discuss. But a simple fall? A crucifix following the laws of physics as it should be? This is a prime example of confirmation bias and gullibility. It shows that if the mind already assumes that there is something outside of the physical realm, that it is much more easier to ascribe such events to that than to actually examine what has happened and admit if an explanation cannot be found that we simply do not know. But surely it has to stroke the ego of the poster to imagine that God found it necessary to give them a sign. By the way, in the rest of the post, the poster jumps to claims about the end times and how the world is turning around ever faster and crisis follows upon crisis, etc., as if Christians have not proclaimed the end times for 2,000 years, showing an amazing ignorance of history. One has to wonder what the people in the beginning or during the 30 Years' War thought, or in the build-up to the First and Second World War, or in the aftermath of especially the First World War, when millions were killed by what is still known as the Spanish flu. The end-time beliefs are seriously dangerous, especially if people in power believe it and attempt to bring it about. Contrary to the times mentioned before, today it is absolutely possible to bring about the end of humanity and human civilization with just a few misunderstandings, or, if one wants, with the push of a few buttons. That is the only but big and scary difference from before. The poster gets from a fallen crucifix to thoughts of the second coming of Jesus. How is that not a leap? And obviously, in the end, the poster is telling us that we are tasked with reaching out to the God they proclaim, when at the same time this God gives them, the one who is already believing, a sign that this God clearly refuses to give all of us. And no, as pointed out, a fallen crucifix, that you would not find in my home anyway, would not be sufficient to convince me. This concludes this episode of Theistic Pearls of Wisdom. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you will join me again the next time on this channel. Enjoy this life. It's the only chance we get, as far as we can tell. So, see you soon, and goodbye.
I heard it all before. Is that all you have in store? Is there really nothing more than just fallacies and faith?